Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Paris Talks Marketing. Today, my guest is Garrett Caudle. Garrett is the CEO of Influent, social media company for LinkedIn executives. And I will let Garrett introduce himself. Welcome to the show, Garrett.
Thanks, Paris. I appreciate you having me on the show. Big fan of the podcast. Was super excited to be able to come on and speak to your audience. My name is Garrett. As you mentioned, I live here in Brooklyn, New York. I founded a company called Influent. We are a LinkedIn marketing agency. So we work with founders and other thought leaders to help them do marketing, drive awareness, drive leads through personal branding and thought leadership strategies on LinkedIn. We are a couple years old, founded in 2022, really started scaling after, reaching product market fit. We're now, quickly growing marketing agency. I would say a breakout agency in a lot of ways because we are growing extremely quickly. Yeah, and excited to talk about some of the strategies that we deploy with our clients.
It's awesome. LinkedIn is red hot right now, and a lot of people would argue that LinkedIn is still the best B2B social network offering some degree of organic reach. Would you agree with that? Do you think that there's still decent organic reach left in
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
it's a great question, and I totally understand the spirit of the question. The funny part is, I wouldn't even use the word "still left." I actually think that LinkedIn, of all sort of social platforms that exist today, is still the most under leveraged channel and has the most upside from any other channel. The reality is that we're still getting used to this idea that there even is social media in the world of the professional world or the world of B2B. And so because it's a little bit new to all of us, it feels sometimes like LinkedIn is reaching this saturation point. It's just not true. When you look at the user base of LinkedIn, you're almost up to a billion, if not maybe now more over than a billion, and only a small percentage of that user base is still active on the platform. As far as opportunity for more people to continue to invest in the platform and grow, there is so much upside. So yeah, I believe it's basically the most undertapped or underutilized, untapped sort of opportunity in B2B marketing.
Yeah. What are what is maybe the top misconception that uh, professionals that want to manage LinkedIn? It could be either on the organic side, it could be paid ads. What is a popular misconception or a myth that you can help us to bust around LinkedIn?
Yeah, the biggest myth I think is about it's this idea that quantity somehow means success. This is a myth in all of social media, whether you're on B2B or B2C. That somehow, if you go viral or if you can get as many followers as possible, that is going to equal the most results for your business. And this myth is pernicious because it leads people to optimize their whole strategy for what's going to get them the most eyeballs. When in reality, in social media in general, but especially in the B2B world, you don't need 10 million followers. You don't even need a million followers. If you are a business owner, you need to think about your TAM, your total available market. You need to think about who in your TAM is most, has the highest intent and is most active on a platform like LinkedIn. And those are the people that you need to be actively engaged with you. Sometimes that's no more than, 20, 30,000 people. That's a small group that you should be focused on appealing to them rather than trying to just become this sort of household name. That's the wrong thing to optimize for.
Yeah. Do you help your clients to actually to connect with their TAMs and build those first degree connections?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is very different from any other social media platform in that it is a connection based or community model, right? So on TikTok, it's a discovery feed. You post something, TikTok's algorithm looks at that post and says, I think people who are this way or that way are going to enjoy that post. And it just starts pushing it out. LinkedIn is going to look at your connections, the people who are closest to you, your peers. It's going to show your content to those people first. And then if whoever engages from there, it'll show it to their connections. And so it's a much more sort of it's about community. It's about building your own little pond. And so for us to really help our executives get in front of that ICP, we have to send really targeted outreach and connections to people within their TAM who we want to be seeing their content. And that's not just as simple as like using Sales Navigator and creating a list, because as anyone knows who, has done any sort of audience building on LinkedIn, it's only as effective as, people are willing to accept a connection request. And, oftentimes, if you're sending cold, connections, that's not good enough. So we have to look in other places. We look at people who are engaging with other thought leaders posts who are in your industry. We look at people who have recently changed jobs and maybe who are actively researching topics related to your industry. So it's not necessarily straightforward, but it definitely has to be part of the strategy.
All right. And in terms of the overall approach, I think the old way of doing it was that people were investing in an active company profile, so posting regularly and trying to accumulate followers of the company page. And now I feel like it's really shifting more to person, where the individuals, and particularly the C-level executives in a company, their personal profiles matter much more. Do you see it that way, and do you help clients also make that transition of the focal point from the company page over to the executives?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about LinkedIn and the way that, companies have approached LinkedIn in sort of eras, right? Like the first era was this sort of company page approach where, people would pay an intern or, somebody on their marketing team or, whoever to manage the LinkedIn company page. And the idea was, well, we'll just take our content from our blog or wherever else and just kind of repurpose it and put it on LinkedIn as like a bulletin board almost. Um, and then, people started experimenting with ads. What if we ran ads to the company page or on the company page and so on? And I think that the reality is very few people have generated real business results during this era through the company pages. And so, LinkedIn became this sort of platform that was sort of third priority, just like not really something people cared a lot
Yeah,
about.
if I had a dime for every time I heard someone say LinkedIn ads, they just don't work. They're too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that LinkedIn ads aren't very effective for a lot of reasons. I won't even say they're not very effective. Getting having high efficacy on your LinkedIn ads is not a straightforward thing to do, and that's for a lot of reasons. But one of those reasons is because the content that most people are pushing toward just isn't good, and that's the reality of how people have treated LinkedIn as this sort of bulletin board to sort of throw a bunch of content on. That was the first era of LinkedIn, and it's unfortunate that that era even had to happen because it created this sort of this taste in people's mouth that LinkedIn is just this sort of soft platform that isn't really. It's just sort of you have to have it, but it's not going to drive any
Mhm.
business.
And wasn't that kind of a copy paste from Facebook when you would advertise the Facebook page, your Facebook page in a similar
Yeah,
fashion?
I
And people
mean,
just didn't really want to see content from pages. They wanted to see content from people.
yeah, I mean, the reality is, it's like, what was social media for in the beginning, right? The very beginning of social media. It's for people to connect with people. And so businesses were like, well, we need to have some type of presence. We want to connect with people, right? But how much connecting with people were businesses ever doing on social media, on any platform? Very, very little. So really, this era is not just a LinkedIn era. It's like a whole era on in the world of social media. Businesses picked it up and said we can use this, and then didn't have much success with it. I think what we saw then happening in B2C is that businesses quickly realized, well, the best way to connect with consumers isn't that our brand is going to be posting on our branded TikTok page or branded Facebook page. It's that we're going to find people who can reach other people using these social media platforms. And that's how influencing happened. Well, that same thing, that same phenomenon that happened in B2C is happening in B2B, but it's just happening like 10 years later. And the difference is that with B2B, there's still this massive opportunity. And you don't necessarily have to look, you can look outside your company for these influencers to connect with other people. But in this new era, you can look inside your company and you can say, are there people inside of our company who can represent us and connect with other people in an authentic way on these social media platforms? And oftentimes the founder, because they have, or co-founders, whoever, because they have the expertise, they're a thought leader, they have the stories, they have all of that, they can represent the brand and connect with people. So that's the second era that we're talking about, is actually taking, LinkedIn and approaching it from a sort of thought leadership first, a people first type of approach.
Mhm. Yeah. And is it hard now that the right people could be the people that are the most active, but I think also to have credibility, it needs to be somewhat senior ranking, if not straight to the CEO or C-level people. Do you sometimes struggle with getting those people who are not historically or natively as social media savvy as some of the younger colleagues? Just getting them, pulling them from behind the curtain, and trying to get them to become active.
Yeah, Paris, this is something that um, we struggle with this, not struggle with this. This is something that an obstacle we always have to face, which is that we work with founders who they know that they need to be the figurehead because they're just the right person for it. They have this rich history. Maybe they have a lot of expertise, but they're sort of reluctant to step into that role. And this is something that, in my opinion, is just an evolution of what it means to almost be a founder or a CEO in sort of the modern era. Um, this isn't something, in my opinion, that founders will be able to opt out of for much longer. If you want to be at the head of a company, that means sometimes you're going to have to meet with investors. It means sometimes you're going to have to go speak at a conference, and that's the nature of what a CEO. Well, not the nature, but it's certainly an aspect of what it means to lead a company. And the digital space is just one of those many venues where that needs to happen. Now, does every founder need to be this, does every company need to be this personality driven sort of, personality cult of the founder? No, absolutely not. But does every founder need to play a role in their company's, marketing by being that sort of digital sort of representation? Yeah, I think so. But there's other ways you can activate people throughout your company. It could be all about you, but it could also, you could bring in people from your organization and, be the sort of the person who, you're guiding people through your industry by talking with other experts at your company. There's other ways you can do this.
Yeah, yeah. I actually had recently interviewed Adam Robinson from retention.com, and
Yeah. Love
he's
Adam.
he's built a following of now, I think, 80,000 plus people. And he shared with me on our during our discussion that he's spending the large majority of his time, probably 75% of his work week, is just dedicated to his LinkedIn activity. Most of that is his posts, but it's also commenting and engaging in other people's posts. And he said that while he can't directly quantify the ROI, and he never will really be able to, he's totally convinced that this is what is driving most of the growth and the value for him right now. And it was a fascinating conversation. But then I look at someone like him and I think, gosh, I mean, how could I ever get there? Um, could I afford to neglect all of my other duties as a CEO and start spending 75 or 80% of my time per week on LinkedIn? Well, what would that mean for my role as a CEO? Do you ever even ask your CEO clients to make some similar types of commitment? Or what is the real commitment
Yeah.
that you're asking them to make?
It's a great question. Um, First of all, I love Adam's great. I think what he's doing for evangelizing about the use of founder-led marketing, I think is awesome. I think he's a great case study and why it can work. And I listened to his episode with you, Paris, and I think there's some great tips in there about how he approaches things. His build in public sort of strategy isn't for everyone, and I would even say that there's some big downsides to doing it that way, and that there are other paths. So if you're listening to that episode and thinking, oh, I don't want to do it that way. That's okay. It doesn't have to be done that way, just so everyone knows. But it is, he's a great guy who's gotten a lot of success that way. Um, to me, the commitment is actually a lot less about the person. It's more about the organization. Is the organization going to commit to LinkedIn as a channel? And that's really where we have to have conversations with our clients. Do you believe in LinkedIn? If so, how much are you ready to sort of really invest in this channel? Because this is about building an engine over time, right? There's going to be ROI, but that ROI is going to be compounding. It's a flywheel. So we need to invest in this channel for a good amount of time to get this to become what it really can be for your business. But that's about organizational commitment. When it comes to the actual individuals, the CEOs, the reality is that the reason that Adam spends so much time isn't because he thinks more than any other executive that LinkedIn or personal branding is the future of marketing. I believe that too, but I don't have to spend as much time. The reason why is because when you're building out that strategy, you can basically do the same thing you do with any other strategy, marketing strategy, which is hire great people or agencies to augment the time you spend on that, right? Like when you think about, Adam and what he's contributing to that strategy right now. I know he mentioned he's doing a lot of his writing. I know he's involved in a lot of his ideating. I know he's involved in, he's obviously on video a lot, so he's there, personally. There are a lot of clients that we work with who have just as much success as Adam, but who are involved only at maybe like 3 or 4 hours per week, and that's because they don't need to be the writer, they don't need to be the video editor, they don't need to be the ideator. These are all marketing capabilities. Being a great writer for LinkedIn, if we limited all founders to those who are really great at writing, and those are the only ones who could have success on LinkedIn, you'd be missing out on a ton of amazing thought leaders. Because the reality is that there's nothing inauthentic about showing up to an interview, let's say once a month, with somebody who's going to interview you based on certain core topics that they decided with you that are important for your LinkedIn, and then writing the content for you in a way that matches your voice. That's absolutely something that someone can do for you that you don't have to be involved in.
So that is the core of your service then, I suppose, at Influent.
That's
It's the
exactly right. I mean,
interview-driven content generation.
that's exactly right. We basically say in this whole process, what are the things the founder or the thought leader has to be involved in, and what are the other things that we could actually level up? Because the reality is that not every founder is going to be the best writer, the best video editor, the best LinkedIn strategist, even the best marketer. That's not every founder. But what is that founder? Well, that founder is the thought leader. So they're going to know a lot about their industry. They're the storyteller. They're going to have a lot of stories to tell, and they understand their ideal audience really well. Those things let's optimize for. The rest we do. So our whole process is, it's journalistic in nature. We're doing monthly interviews with our executives where we're going through and asking them questions about their company, about their industry, about topics that we ahead of time will have strategized around, and bring data to the table, and interview them and others at their organization, and then basically take all of that together into a single sort of ecosystem where we can then pull out posts and points of view that executive or others at their organization shared. And then we synthesize that into really great punchy content for LinkedIn.
Great. So then I assume then you must have access to those CEOs' profiles in order to manage their posts on their behalf.
Yeah. So the approach we take can differ by client. Some CEOs really want to retain access. Some don't. I'll just say this: we find as many opportunities as possible to save our executives time. So oftentimes, that can involve various levels of interaction with their actual account.
What if they don't give you access? Then that means they're going to have to manage the posts themselves. Does that present a roadblock to your effectiveness?
Yeah, the vast majority of the work isn't in the publication of the post; it's in the preparation of the post. The development, from the ideation all the way through the actual, sourcing of the content, through the crafting of the post itself. If we can create a system that does all those things to the best, to the best degree we can, at that point, whatever's left in terms of publication and that kind of thing gets worked out. Most of our clients aren't that way, the way you're describing. Most of our clients are pretty open with our ability to handle their account.
Yeah. What are you seeing in terms of post content and formats? I love asking this question, and a lot of people have different views on it. There was a time when video was definitely the way to go, and the video content, video posts were getting the most engagement. But now I think it has shifted. I see a lot of posts that are just text only that do really well. I see a lot of these documents, maybe where you're swiping through the PDFs,
Yeah.
or maybe there's not even a clear cut answer. Maybe it would just depend on who's your audience. But what can you tell me and our audience about formats and different types of posts that are working today?
Yeah. So, LinkedIn, like any other social platform, has an algorithm that is a bit of a black box, right? It's constantly changing, difficult to see within. By working across a ton of executive profiles, we're able to kind of see how things shift over time. In the past, it used to be a little bit more equal across formats, videos, graphics, written posts. It was much more about optimizing for whatever is the best medium to contribute or to communicate your point of view. Sometimes if something's very complicated, it's helpful to have a graphic. We would use a graphic. Sometimes if something, involves, if we got a really good clip of the founder talking, we'd use a video, so on. What we've seen over the last year is that LinkedIn is really shifting in the way they treat video versus written posts. LinkedIn has always been a very, I guess, writing first platform, meaning that like most people in the way they interact with LinkedIn are sort of scrolling throughout their day and not necessarily going to take the time to sit and watch or listen to a video. And so written posts have always done very well. We've seen over the last year that written posts do even better. And other posts like, video posts in particular have started getting worse and worse impression share. Now, what we have noticed is over the last 3 or 4 months, LinkedIn has built this new feed, this discovery type video feed that's not dissimilar to like a YouTube Shorts. It's videos 60 seconds or less that are basically pulled into that feed. You don't have to post directly in that feed. You post a video post less than 60 seconds, LinkedIn automatically pulls it into their feed. And it's becoming sort of this separate algorithm that's much more discovery based. So if you're posting about SEO strategies and there's somebody who works in SEO, they can scroll there and see your post. And we've had a few clients who have video posts that have gotten picked up by that feed who, the post was at 3,000 impressions before and is at, 30,000 or even 60,000, 100,000 impressions after. So what happens with video content is sort of, we're right now sort of in a sort of a transition phase as this new feed rolls out. But what I will, tell your listeners is this, focus on what's going to drive the most value, and the quality is more important than anything. So, don't post a video just to post a video. Focus on writing really great posts. And if the video contributes, then great. And if it doesn't, please leave it off. And then last thing here, Paris, because I know the video, a video gets a higher quality engagement when you think about it, right? So, when someone looks at your face talking for a bit and sees you and they see your face on their phone or their desktop over and over each day, there is a different quality to that engagement. They're getting to know you.
Really getting to know you.
Yeah. And so there's utility there. So I wouldn't say just abandon it because it gets less impressions. Work it in there, but don't let it become your entire strategy is what I'd say.
Yeah. I'll never forget one of the things that Adam said, which is there's a difference between being well known and then being
Known well.
well. And that well known is just pure popularity, like maybe being an influencer, but being known well means that people really know you as a person much better. And when he would go to conferences in person, people would come up to him and speak to him as though they really knew him well, and almost like they were friends. And there was a degree of intimacy almost right out of the gate. And of course, he's looking at a total stranger, but they feel like this is somebody that I know very well. And I think that's one of the keys to unlocking this, at least for him. Part of that, though, is I think his approach of being radically transparent with what he's sharing, and with financial data and the successes and failures, especially the failures. But
as you're talking through that, Paris, just to jump in really quick. So my longtime partner, she is an influencer in the B2C world, and it's really funny because I have access to that world through her, and I see sort of I get to talk to and become friends with a lot of influencers, and there's so much that world can teach us about the B2B world. And so many of these sort of experiences that some of these founders are having, like Adam, are experiences that influencers in the early days on the B2C side were having, like building a community, and then all of a sudden realizing, like, you run into somebody and you're like, oh, these aren't just 100,000 whoever's, these are real people who are getting to know me personally. And it is a very interesting phenomenon that's happening. And there's so many, similarities there. Something I will say is that, building a community is all about providing value, right? And authenticity is always going to be part of that value because it creates human connection. But there can be sort of a difference between an influencer, both on the B2B and B2C side, who provides value through mostly education and somebody who provides value through mostly entertainment, right? And so with Adam, right, there's a little bit of a mixture there, right? Like people get to know him, they learn about his struggles, they feel something
He
good.
definitely is funny too. I mean, he's
Yeah,
irreverently funny.
yeah, it's totally. And there's an
Especially
entertainment
when
value
he
there.
attacks like Sixth Sense and some of
A
the big
hundred
AUM
percent.
platforms. Yeah.
100%. And there is a true entertainment value there. And that's going to create a little bit different of a type of connection than, founder who maybe really focuses on just the education part. So I would just encourage any founder, if they see the Adam thing, don't be discouraged. You don't have to be that kind of creator. You can be much more focused on, the education part.
Mhm. So let's get to, I think, one of the elephant in the room type of questions, which is that CEOs are often always looking at quantifiable ROI for any investment. And some of them are former CFOs, which make them even worse. So what would you say to a CEO that says, all right, look, this all sounds great. I know I should be doing this. I know I have to be doing this. But ultimately, when we're 6 months or 12 months down the road, how are you going to show me the ROI in terms of how is this impacting my bottom line or my revenue?
Yeah, so this is a real challenge for obvious reasons because anytime you're investing in a strategy where attribution is really difficult, it creates this sort of conundrum, right? Where like you sort of have little signals here and there that it's working, but oftentimes modern attribution isn't good enough to be able to tell the whole story, which leaves you sort of sitting there wondering, am I getting ROI or am I not? And typically, when people have to ask themselves that question, they'll just err on the side of I'm probably not, and therefore it's not worth doing. So, there's an attribution problem piece to this. There's also a sort of where we're used to the world of performance marketing, where you put $1 in and you get, four back, and you immediately say, all right, well, I know my CAC to LTV. I know we have all these defined numbers, and we say, all right, let's go. And we can kind of measure our ROI from day one. And some channels aren't like that. They aren't like that. And that's something we have to understand and accept is that, when you're working in social media, you're building an engine, it's a flywheel, you're having to invest in something sort of pre-ROI with some trust that you're building it the right way and it's going to, drive ROI at some point. And so those two things are at play. And so usually, there's two ways that we're kind of approaching this. The first is trying to help solve the attribution problem. So, the more you can measure this, the easier it's going to be to tell the story of its impact. And therefore, the easier it is going to be to be able to prove out ROI sooner. So, what we're doing is, we've developed some actually software that helps us basically track engagement down to a person level, not dissimilar to the stuff that Adam is doing at our B2B, and then combining that with person level identity tracking, such as our B2B, and then being able to sort of look intelligently across sort of any company's ecosystem, from their site to any other digital property they have to their LinkedIn engagement and the connections we drive and so on, and be able to map all that out in a way that helps us be able to really track who is coming from LinkedIn, who's not, how did LinkedIn play a role in someone's journey? How didn't it? We have a lot of clients where we'll do an audit of their business. They'll tell us, we don't think LinkedIn's working. We'll go in, we'll do an audit, as part of our sort of understanding if we're going to want to be partners with them. And we actually show them, hey, look, 30% of your pipeline has actually engaged with one of your employees or your founder's posts over the last year or 9 months or so. And that helps them understand, they came in through PPC or paid search, but really they're part of this ecosystem. So anyway, the attribution thing is something we're working hard on. We have some really great solutions that helps us tell a better story. And then when it comes to like the actual organizational investment and when to expect ROI, what we try to do is we try to tell people that, like, if you're doing it right, in the first 90 days, you should see green shoots, meaning like little things popping out of the ground. That's going to look like your existing network reaching out, people who used to be clients kind of coming back, people talking to you, qualitative stuff. You're at a conference and someone says, hey man, I really like this stuff you're posting, or hey, this is really neat. By 6 months, you should be seeing some regular lead flow. In most businesses, if you're not seeing some standard lead flow by 6 months, I don't think that you're leveraging the channel fully. By a year, we have a 90% client retention rate. So essentially, people who make it a year with us, just 90% of them will continue on to another year. That's because when you build that engine for a year and you do it the right way, it becomes a huge part of your marketing, and ROI as like a reason to leave doesn't become an issue because our clients can see it.
Yeah. The middle phase that you mentioned, which is some lead generation, are you talking about leads that would come through all inbound channels, including website, or specifically DMs and LinkedIn?
I'm talking about people who come in from all lead sources, even paid. We did an analysis one time of someone's paid traffic, especially on like keywords that were like paid branded search on Google PPC. And there was, I think, I don't remember what the exact number was, but I think it was like a third also had some type of engagement on LinkedIn, whether that was like they were connected to the founder or they had liked a founder's post or whatever. Um, that's like in this client's instance, that was like a sizable number of people who otherwise would have been categorized as a PPC lead, but were truly influenced by the LinkedIn channel. So yeah, that's what I mean is that it's the buyer journey. The B2B buyer journey is not very often linear. It's about touch points, and the where somebody converts is almost not almost always, but can often be different from where somebody's nurtured.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever done the so-called self-reported attribution, where in the lead gen form you just ask, "Where did you first hear about us?" And maybe LinkedIn broadly, that could be just putting LinkedIn as one of the answers allows you to at least get what's likely a first touch attribution.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is like a 101 thing that we do with our clients is we ask them or very, very strongly recommend to them that they add this self-reported attribution onto their forms, or that's in the sales cycle, that this, at least the salesperson is asking that and logging it in the CRM. That's sort of the 101. You want to graduate to another level, use certain person level sort of website tracking, such as our B2B or, mysquid.io is another great option. These platforms can really help you understand how web traffic is, coming from places like LinkedIn. We're looking at people's web traffic and then saying, matching that person to LinkedIn activity, the data that we're scraping from LinkedIn. So anyway, point is that there's sorts of levels to this when it comes to attribution, but self-reported is certainly sort of the basic level.
Yeah, yeah. I also think we help some of our clients to do podcasting. I think there's a little bit of maybe an ego element here at play as well, which is that when you are building your personal brand, there is real personal satisfaction of building a brand of your name and your persona. And more, ironically, our podcasting service it's also extremely sticky, and it's
Sure.
probably the service where we can least prove quantifiable ROI compared to our Google Ads management and SEO. It's probably the hardest to build the case for attribution and ROI, but it's extremely sticky. And I think one of the reasons is that just simply the psychology of this is that building your personal brand is something that is personally rewarding. And if somebody is
Sure.
helping you do that, you're not going to scrutinize the bottom line quite as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's this interesting dynamic inside our business where that's what you're saying is exactly true. That we're working with founders, and when you start posting for founder and they start building up their audience, there they get that dopamine hit that everyone gets from social media, and it becomes very satisfying, and that's great, and it does make our service really sticky, especially in the beginning, and that's really helpful, right? Because we need people to buy in. Like this is again, like if we can get them to a year, they're with us forever because we need them to buy in long enough for us to be able to build this engine. So that has a lot of utility for us, and that's great. However, the other part of this dynamic is that we really need that founder at some point to be able to step outside of that, because the reality is that it can become a really big distraction when you're trying to understand what it is about a person that makes them unique or different or appealing to an audience. And when we evaluate ourselves and we try to say, oh, I'm really interesting, and here's why people find me interesting, I guarantee you that, if you ask somebody that, what they tell you is going to be different from maybe what you would say about them, right? The reason why is because we sort of don't really see ourselves in the way that other people see us. And you need a third party. You need to be actually pretty scientific about how you collect that information and then action it with your personal brand. And if you're sitting there in this ego exercise, you're not going to be led by what the data is telling you. You're going to be led by your own sort of I want people to see me this way, and therefore that's what they see, and therefore that's what we should optimize for. And that's just not the right way to do it. So yes, it's a useful thing for us in the beginning, but over time we try to help our clients step outside of that and focus more on the data. This is an art and a science, and the science part needs to become more part of it as we sort of build
Yeah.
sophistication.
Yeah, it's a really good point. But I suppose you're not complaining that this is what helps to make your service really sticky, because that's a good thing.
No, yeah, I think the only way to build a marketing agency is to help your clients build their businesses, right? Very few marketing agencies can exist and grow if they're not actually helping their clients build their businesses. And so for me, having a sticky service where people really they feel that dopamine hit, I think it's great, but only insofar as it allows us to build a better, longer relationship with them so that we can get to the results that are possible. Because the reality is that if you ask our long-term clients, it's not the ego part that's keeping them with us, it's the results part. And if the ego helps us get to the results, then that's fine with me.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe the ego gets you through the first 6 months, and then the real results kick in and then carry you
Yeah,
from
yeah,
there.
exactly. I mean, and I think I said this before, but it's probably worth underlining again. Um, this is very much one of those marketing strategies where the more you put in, the more you get out, which sounds obvious, but for a lot of people, more doesn't just mean how much energy you put into it. It's also about time. How much time over, I mean, like months, are you going to dedicate to this? The real winners, like Adam, are the ones who didn't just say, I'm going to try this out for a month. I'm going to try it out for 3 months and then decide if I want to do it or not. They're the ones who said, no, I believe in this channel and I'm going to do this for at least a year. Um, when you have that level of commitment, what you're going to get out is a really, really high level strategy that's going to become a huge part of your marketing.
Yeah. One aspect that we haven't chatted about is the activity around engaging with other people's posts. Is that also something that you encourage the clients and C levels, thought leaders to do as well, or that you handle for them? And how important of a role is that?
Yeah, so this one is a little bit more like a done with you type service. Most of our service, at least today as I'm speaking, our most of our service is done for you, but the comment side of things is a little bit done with you. And what I mean by that is, we help surface the right posts, the right people that should be engaged with. There's a big science to this, actually, being able to look across different industry experts and sort of identify who has the types of people following them that we want to be in front of. And once you identify those people, we are able to then bring those people to the table and look at the posts that they post and identify for our clients, these are the ones you really need to be focused on. When it comes to actually leaving the comments, this is something where oftentimes it's better for us just to create a process where the executive can, one time a week for 20 minutes, go in and leave the comments they need to leave than it is for us to necessarily manage it for them. This is not always the case, but I think especially with comments, there's a standard for authenticity that AI comments have really risen that bar, right? AI comments are trash, and I would say if never ever ever do them under any circumstance, because they will actively hurt your personal brand. And so, if a team doesn't perfectly approximate your voice or your point of view in a comment, it can really damage, I think, your reputation. So I think it's important that, right now, at least in our service, that we have our clients be a little bit involved in that part of the process.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I've found that even some of my thoughtful comments have done better in LinkedIn than
And
posts
posts,
themselves have
yeah.
done. Yeah.
Comments are becoming more and more a bigger part of what it means to build a following on LinkedIn. They always have been, but as sort of LinkedIn grows and more people are posting, there's a part of the strategy which is like, are you contributing to the conversation? But then are you also sort of showing that you are you're an active and willing participant in other people's sort of dialogues. And so you have to be willing to step into those conversations and not just be sort of a one-sided, I speak into the void, but I don't actually, participate. But yeah, it's becoming a bigger and bigger part of our strategy for sure.
Yeah. I want to bounce an idea off of you. And we've been working on some very rudimentary lead scoring system and methodology that's connected with both cold email outreach and LinkedIn. And the LinkedIn metrics, there are really three categories of KPIs. One is the impressions, post impressions and overall impressions of posts. The second is the engagement of those posts. So it could be a like or a comment, but comments get a little bit more weighting
Sure.
than the likes. And then the third bucket is people that have visited my profile, which I consider to be almost as good, or in some cases even better than a visit to our website. And we're trying to assign, I guess, we're trying to create a lead scoring methodology there. Do you think that those are the right KPIs if our goal is to try to generally measure the effectiveness of the LinkedIn activity from my profile, or do you think we're missing anything? Any other KPIs there?
What a great question. And I love that you are actively working on building this type of reporting out. Because to me, this is, when I talked about attribution before, companies that put in the effort to do what you're describing are going to have such a better picture of the efficacy of their efforts. And it's stuff that we've built into our service so that companies don't have to go through the pain of setting all this up and setting up the lead scoring and so on. But to answer your question, I think you're hitting them right. The most of the main sort of things you can measure, right? Like views are really difficult because you don't have a solid sense of who's viewing your posts. LinkedIn's not going to tell you here are all the 10,000 people who viewed your posts. So you're measuring what is maybe easiest to be measured: likes, comments, shares, profile views. I would add in there, right? Like if someone accepted a connection request, I don't know if you said that, but that would be one that you could measure.
No, no, I
Same.
didn't, but that's a really good one. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I think like if someone accepted a connection request, I think where you would maybe want to go with this, if you had like a LinkedIn newsletter, you could measure that. If you had, LinkedIn Live and someone registered for a LinkedIn Live, you could measure that. So the more engaged you are on the platform, you can measure those things as well. But where I would actually go with this isn't necessarily deeper into the platform. At some point you're going to run out of things to measure because there's simply, you can't, like I said, you can't measure a view. But what you can do is start to be more sophisticated in how you measure it. So rather than just saying Billy liked one of our posts, let's say Billy liked our posts over 3 months, and here are the different topics of each post that he liked, and here are the different formats of those posts that he liked. And now when I reach out to Billy, I know that he actually was really interested in this specific revenue topic. And by the way, I also know that 3 other people at Billy's organization who he reports to have also been engaging with other people at my organization. And you start to build out a little bit more of a sophisticated sort of map of how Billy and Billy's company have been interacting with your entire ecosystem, and then layer that in with other stuff. If Billy and his team have also downloaded white papers and attended a live event, you talk to them at a conference and mix that in with CRM data and website data. Maybe he visited your website. You see that through My Squid or through our B2B. All of these things can be kind of put together. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, you're measuring the right things. It's just about how sophisticated is that measurement, and are you able to sort of aggregate it and sort of do other things, interesting things with.
Yeah, and I was really wondering out loud at that time, shouldn't there be software that can do this? That can just say, look, I want to be able to, if somebody that visits my profile, I want to give them 10 points. Somebody that engages with a post, I want to give them another 10 points. An impression, I mean, it's harder to track all the people on those impressions, but accepting a connection request, 5 points or whatever. Um, but are you saying that you've already built this software, or does this software exist?
The software exists. It exists inside of our agency as a proprietary tech that we use to help our clients. We're not a SaaS company, nor do we ever want to be really a SaaS company. What we want to do is we want to create incredible technology that's the most valuable to people who work with us, right? Like this technology could be, you could kind of dumb it down and like really make it like super simple to use and like maybe make it widely applicable. What we want to do is build as much sort of detail and sophistication into it as possible, which makes it something that we can provide as part of our service that is most valuable to people who use us. So it becomes a little bit of a moat for our service. But yes, to answer your question, we've built this and we use it for our clients, and it allows us to optimize for the right things. It allows us to do attribution better. Yeah, it's a pretty neat system, actually.
And if I understand correctly, you are you do not have plans to roll this out into a separate SaaS product?
We
Is it
do not.
attempting at least?
It's that's such a funny question. Um, Maybe it's a temptation at first, or at least it was something I considered. Uh, the reality is that I think that I think the utility of a tool like this is only as high as people are able as it's only as this tool is only as useful as people who are able to build able to do the strategy that we do for our service well. And I still think the gap there is huge. I think when you look at people who can actually do founder led marketing on LinkedIn well, it is like a 0.0001% of the current market right now. Um, Putting this tool out for that 0.001% and asking them to pay $500 a month, I don't want to do that. I want to help more people be able to do this strategy. And if this tech can help them do it better and faster, that's what I want. So I think for us, we feel really confident and comfortable saying we want to keep ourselves focused on helping more founders build this founder led marketing strategy. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's sort of the
Fair
thing.
enough. Fair enough, Garrett. So who is hiring you? Is it the founders or is it someone in marketing that's saying, "Hey, I need you to get our founders off his ass," or pull him from behind the curtain? Who is it that usually comes to you?
Yeah, it's both. However, there is a loose sort of correlation between the smaller startups. It's obviously mostly the founder.
Yeah.
Larger companies that are in the 200 to 500 person sort of headcount sort of size. At that point, we do see a combination of a go to market leader, VP of marketing, CMO. Who basically usually this we see this archetype a lot, a scrappy VP of marketing who has come into an organization that's a little bit older with a founder who maybe is sort of a little bit behind and has come in and said, you know what, I want to make a difference in my organization. I know we can do this really well. I want to change things up. Maybe they're going with this like old SDR sort of sales model and they're like, I want to do founder led marketing at scale. I want to utilize, like really innovative cold outbound strategies. Like somebody like that archetype is great to reach out to us and say like, hey, I want you to help come in and like really transition our organization into a more founder led marketing sort of people first, contemporary B2B marketing approach. Um, those conversations are fun because typically with those larger enterprise sort of businesses, it's not just about the founder. It's about how can we find thought leaders throughout the organization and make this sort of like a bench of people
Yeah.
that we bring
To,
to
to do
market.
the
That's really exciting.
amplification, huh? Yeah. I think that there's a huge missed opportunity around amplification through, I guess, employee advocacy, for lack of a better word. If you could just get a committed group of people in the company to engage with every post and comment and to reshare, the amplification benefits are so massive, especially if
Yeah.
some of those folks have large followings in their own right, and they probably
Yeah.
would.
I,
But I
I
think a lot of companies are missing that. Just to create a structured program around employee advocacy and amplification.
I completely agree. I think the words that I like to use, I don't like to use amplification because what it seems to me is like basically, asking a bunch of employees to sort of push the founder's POV. I actually don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think the right way to go about it is to find sort of micro influencers throughout the organization who are specialists in any particular subject. So, the way that influencing works, right, is that you have sort of broad people who talk about broad topics, provide broad value, have a more broad audience, and then you start to niche down. And every time you niche down into a sub niche, you're creating a micro audience, and those micro audiences are super powerful. So, if you're, an organization who focuses on, okay, us for example, copywriting is one part of our agency, but we have a lot that we do. But copywriting is one part. A kick-ass copywriter at our agency would be a fantastic micro influencer to talk about how copywriting has changed and what good copywriting looks like. That's a great little niche that they should be own. And can you support that person in owning that niche? There's all sorts of ways you can support them, but in my opinion, that's how I would do it, rather than just having that person just reshare the CEO's posts.
Yeah, it's a very fair point because then they might just appear as a just kind of a mouthpiece for the CEO and not authentic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people within a community who are like part of who are like If there's a community and like it's like the different admins of the community like all trying to like rah about the community. It's like it's way more powerful to have people build their own little communities and all ladder up to this larger thing than it is to just have like little cheerleaders throughout your organization.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Really, really good point.
yeah.
Um, Great stuff.
Paris, I
Well,
was going to say I have like one more little like topic that I'm excited to talk about if that's all right.
absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah. So just really quickly, the utility of a founder-led marketing strategy. I've talked about a lot today in the context of LinkedIn, and that's because we're a LinkedIn marketing agency. The reality is that for the clients that we build this engine for, the utility goes well beyond LinkedIn and even beyond social. And so what we're seeing with some of our clients is not only are they doubling down, they're having other thought leaders of the organization become part of the strategy, but they're also utilizing their founder in other aspects of their marketing. And what I mean by this is like in cold outbound campaigns, per scaled one-to-one personalized outreach campaigns using platforms like Clay. When you have a founder-led brand that you've already built on a platform like LinkedIn or Twitter, and then you use that in your outbound campaigns, we've seen crazy numbers that you otherwise wouldn't see from another person. Same thing with like affiliate programs when you're working with other influencers. Like there's so many interesting opportunities that are unlocked when you invest in this. And so what I would encourage people as they're thinking about ROI for this type of strategy, open your mind a little bit to what this also unlocks for you as a company and how it might impact the efficacy of your strategies across the board. Because truly, this is about changing your entire approach to marketing. It's not just about sort of a channel over here on the side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Now you've got the wheels turning. So you're creating a lot of assets that could be used for hyper personalized cold email outreach for the SDRs by
Yeah, not just
mhm,
assets, but the personal brand is an asset. Meaning,
mhm,
like you get an email from a founder. Imagine you got an email from Adam at our B2B. Adam has what 80,000 followers on LinkedIn. Like you
mhm.
go and look at Adam's LinkedIn profile. If you hadn't seen him before, you're like, oh shit, like this dude has some smart stuff to say. It's it just creates this sort of like this compounding effect of every platform you can work that founder into at that point or the thought leader
Mm.
into becomes better and better better results for each one.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with a platform like a Clay that allows you to try to match up these bits of content and to personalize them, that enables the personalization at scale.
Oh yeah. I mean, these two strategies can like work really well hand in hand. It's yeah, there's a whole playbook for what the future of B2B marketing is, and we don't have enough time to talk about it. But I have a pretty solid theory of change as to how things are going to sort of morph. We're at like a really big inflection point, and I think that founder led marketing, specifically through LinkedIn, is a huge core pillar of that. And that there are a few
Mhm.
other core pillars that I think are going to exist that will all work together. I'll have to leave that as a teaser.
Okay, let's leave that as a teaser for our
Yeah,
next conversation. But that's really intriguing. So founder led marketing as a pillar for the future of B2B marketing with other pillars to come next time.
that's right.
Great stuff. Well, Garrett, thanks so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. You've built an amazing agency. I think this is a great case of a really timing and relevancy of service. LinkedIn is certainly the platform for B2B right now, and it's here to stay. So, congrats on your success. Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
great insights, and I'm really looking forward to keeping in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Paris. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me on the show. Looking forward to talking soon.
Same here. Thanks.